You're the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, practically speaking, and you're not interested in ensuring that the data of millions and millions of Americans are not absolutely secure? Don't you think it'd be pretty important to look if there is a chance that this is a violation of multiple laws?
Well, Senator, what we do is everyone that is employed at any agency that we own the security clearance process adjudication for, we make sure we adjudicate it appropriately beforehand. But we're speaking about a hypothetical, so I don't know.
No, we're speaking about DOGE, which is operating every day, collecting information, putting that information together with, I think, malicious intent, because it's not an agency that's saving a lot of money. And it could be used to defraud Americans. It could be used to interfere with our voting systems.
Could one government database become a threat to millions of Americans? That was the warning one senator delivered as he confronted FBI Director Kash Patel over DOGE's access to sensitive federal information.
As you're well aware, DOGE is going through and seizing a significant amount of information from different federal agencies. There are multiple lawsuits challenging the legality of this. Their goal, as they've admitted, is to develop a single centralized data center which would have vast amounts of data, which could be used for very malign purposes. But first, can you give us assurance that every one of those DOGE workers has the appropriate clearance to see this information?
As far as it relates to the FBI, I can.
But not the other agencies?
Well, I don't know who's where, Senator. I'd have to look.
Well, don't you think it'd be pretty important to look if there is a chance that this is a violation of multiple laws?
Well, Senator, what we do is everyone that is employed at any agency that we own the security clearance process adjudication for, we make sure we adjudicate it appropriately beforehand.
Who would be responsible for the other agencies? The agency itself?
The agency itself.
Have you received instructions from the White House to you and every other agency to ensure the security clearances of these individuals?
For me, as it relates to who we control, yeah, we adjudicate the security clearance.
Did you get an instruction from the White House to do that?
To make sure they have their security clearances? No, I don't need an instruction. I just do it.
Has there been instructions to other agencies?
It's less so an instruction whether it's DOGE or a new hire or whatnot. If they're getting a security clearance, they go through a process.
Well, the bottom line is you, in your position, cannot assure us that all the people that are dealing with this information, because it's vast across the whole government, have the appropriate clearances. Do you know where this information is located when it's removed from federal sites?
Since this hearing, multiple federal lawsuits have challenged DOGE's access to agency records. Some courts initially restricted access to certain systems, while other rulings later allowed access to continue under specific conditions as the litigation moved forward.
What information? The BI information, Senator?
All the information they're picking up from the Department of Treasury, the Department of Agriculture. As you know, DOGE is working through every federal agency.
Well, again, Senator, it depends on who the adjudicator is for the clearance. If we, the FBI, are for that individual or individuals, we maintain it in our BI system.
So they cannot take the information from the FBI. It has to remain in your system. I'm talking about DOGE. When DOGE employees walk into your computers, get on their computers with their own computers, I've been told, where does that information go?
As far as I'm tracking for the FBI, nobody's bringing in outside computers to do anything.
But is that the case throughout the government?
Well, I can't speak for every other agency. I just don't know, sir.
Once this information is, and in some cases it's been clear in press reports that it is leaving the premises and of the agency, if this information is all consolidated, as the suggestion is, what protections are there for the American people against the misuse of this information?
Well, again, I can't speak to other agencies and how they hold their information. I'm not familiar with it. As far as the FBI is concerned, We hold all information for BIs in one place, and it is not accessible.
Since this hearing, the legal battle over DOGE's access to sensitive federal data has expanded into several appellate courts. The cases now focus on whether agency access complied with federal privacy laws, security procedures, and administrative requirements.
Now, you're the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, practically speaking, and you're not interested in ensuring that the data of millions and millions of Americans are not absolutely secure?
I am, but I cannot tell the Department of Homeland Security how to handle their data. That's for the DHS secretary. I'm not permitted by law to
What
do
law?
that.
What law prevents that? If you believe there's a crime that's being committed,
If there's a crime that's being committed, that's a separate instance, Senator. You're just talking about holding data.
no, I'm talking about holding data that someone should not have access to, and in a place and a location it should not be located at, would, in my view, constitute.
In that hypothetical, if a law was being broken, our line agents would open up a case.
Have you opened up a case?
But we're speaking about a hypothetical, so I don't know.
No,
if there's a
we're
specific case.
speaking about DOGE, which is operating every day, collecting information, putting that information together with, I think, malicious intent, because it's not an agency that's saving a lot of money. And it could be used to defraud Americans. It could be used to interfere with our voting systems. It could be used many ways. And if we don't get a handle on it now, and you're the chief federal law enforcement officer, I think we're going to see some very, very adverse results. And I would hope you would get to look at this and investigate this immediately and take appropriate actions.
Since this May 8, 2025 Senate Appropriations Committee hearing, the legal and political debates surrounding the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and its access to sensitive federal data has continued to evolve. Multiple lawsuits were filed challenging DOGE's authority to obtain personal information maintained by agencies including the Social Security Administration, the Treasury Department, the Department of Education, and other federal departments. Several federal district courts initially issued temporary restrictions limiting DOGE's access to certain databases while litigation proceeded, concluding that plaintiffs had raised substantial questions about federal privacy laws and administrative procedures. Those early rulings, however, did not resolve the underlying legal questions, and cases continued through the appellate process. During 2026, appellate courts issued mixed decisions on procedural issues, while the Supreme Court allowed portions of DOGE's access to continue during ongoing litigation, meaning the broader legal dispute over the program's authority remains unresolved. The central question, how far the executive branch may consolidate or access sensitive government data through DOGE, continues to be litigated in federal courts. Congress has likewise continued scrutinizing DOGE's operations through additional oversight hearings involving FBI Director Kash Patel, agency inspectors general, and senior administration officials. Democratic lawmakers have repeatedly questioned whether sufficient safeguards exist to protect Americans' personal information when data is accessed across multiple agencies, while Republican members have generally defended DOGE as an effort to modernize government technology, eliminate waste, and improve operational efficiency. FBI Director Patel has consistently maintained that the FBI follows its own security clearance procedures for individuals requiring access to FBI systems, but has emphasized that each federal agency remains responsible for managing its own information systems and granting access under applicable law. Those exchanges have reflected the broader separation of responsibilities within the federal government, where individual departments maintain primary authority over their own records and cybersecurity practices. The hearing itself centered on Senator Jack Reed's concerns that DOGE could ultimately consolidate vast amounts of sensitive government information into centralized databases without sufficient legal safeguards. Reed questioned whether every DOGE employee accessing federal information possessed the appropriate security clearance and whether the administration had established adequate protections against misuse of personal information belonging to millions of Americans. His questions reflected broader concerns that concentrating sensitive data from multiple agencies could increase cybersecurity risks, create opportunities for unauthorized access, or potentially allow information collected for one governmental purpose to be used for unrelated purposes. Director Kash Patel responded by drawing a clear distinction between the FBI's responsibilities and those of other executive agencies. He explained that the FBI independently adjudicates security clearances for personnel under its jurisdiction and stated that individuals requiring FBI clearances must complete the Bureau's established vetting process before receiving access to protected information. However, Patel repeatedly emphasized that he could not speak on behalf of other departments because each agency administers its own systems, determines access procedures for its own personnel, and operates under separate statutory authorities. Throughout the exchange, Patel declined to speculate about practices outside the FBI, maintaining that he could only describe procedures directly within the Bureau's control. One of the hearing's central disagreements involved the role of the FBI in responding to potential concerns about government data management. Reed argued that because the FBI serves as the nation's premier federal law enforcement agency, it should take an active role in ensuring that sensitive government information is protected across the executive branch whenever there are credible concerns about misuse. Patel responded that law enforcement authority differs from administrative oversight. He explained that the FBI investigates potential violations of federal criminal law when evidence supports opening an investigation, but it does not supervise how other executive agencies manage their internal information systems absent an identified legal violation falling within the Bureau's investigative jurisdiction. That distinction reflects a broader principle within the federal government. Agencies such as the Department of Homeland Security, the Treasury Department, the Social Security Administration, and the Department of Education each maintain their own statutory responsibilities for safeguarding the information they collect. Oversight of those systems generally involves inspectors general, agency chief information officers, privacy officials, and congressional committees, while criminal investigations become appropriate only if evidence emerges that federal laws governing unauthorized access, disclosure, or misuse of protected information have actually been violated. The exchange also highlighted growing concerns about data governance as federal agencies increasingly rely on modern digital infrastructure. Successive administrations from both political parties have pursued initiatives to improve coordination among federal agencies, eliminate duplicate systems, and modernize outdated information technology. Supporters argue that better integration can improve government efficiency, reduce administrative costs, identify improper payments, strengthen cybersecurity, and improve delivery of public services. Critics caution that centralizing large quantities of sensitive personal information inevitably increases privacy risks and raises important constitutional, statutory, and cybersecurity questions regarding who may access that information, under what authority, and with what independent oversight. Another significant issue raised during the hearing involved security clearances themselves. A security clearance alone does not automatically authorize unlimited access to government information. Federal employees and contractors generally must satisfy multiple requirements, including background investigations, favorable adjudications, agency-specific authorization, and a demonstrated need to know the information necessary for their official duties. Even individuals possessing high-level clearances are typically limited to information directly connected to their assigned responsibilities. That layered approach is designed to balance operational effectiveness with protection of classified and sensitive government records. The discussion also reflected broader constitutional questions regarding the separation of powers. Congress possesses oversight authority over executive agencies and routinely examines how federal programs collect, store, and protect information. At the same time, executive branch officials maintain discretion over day-to-day administration of federal agencies within the authority granted by statute. When disputes arise concerning whether executive actions exceed legal authority, federal courts ultimately determine whether those actions comply with the Constitution, privacy statutes, administrative law, and other applicable legal requirements. The ongoing DOGE litigation illustrates how the judicial branch functions as the final arbiter when disagreements emerge over the scope of executive authority. Cybersecurity experts have likewise noted that the debate extends beyond this particular administration. Regardless of which party controls the White House, federal agencies increasingly manage enormous volumes of financial, tax, healthcare, employment, immigration, and national security information in interconnected digital systems. As technology evolves, policymakers continue debating how government can improve efficiency through greater data integration while preserving privacy, preventing unauthorized access, and maintaining public confidence that sensitive personal information will be handled responsibly. Looking back, this hearing became an early chapter in a much larger national debate over digital governance, executive authority, and information security. Senator Reid's questions reflected concerns about privacy, centralized government databases, and potential future misuse of sensitive information, while Director Patel emphasized the legal limits of the FBI's authority and the responsibility of individual agencies to manage their own systems. As federal courts continue resolving challenges to DOGE's operations and Congress considers additional oversight and potential legislative reforms, the issues raised during this exchange remain central to the ongoing discussion over how the federal government should balance technological modernization, national security, administrative efficiency, and the privacy rights of millions of Americans.